Hello, everybody. I'm in a minute or two a little bit early. I just wanted to give a few people a chance to let them know that I'm here for the live. I did get a little bit of a heads up message out only fractionally ahead of time this month around. So I know it wasn't a lot of heads up for all of you people that are on my mailing list, but hopefully I was able to reach a few of you to let you know that this event was taking place. So in case you don't know me, my name's Jackie. Pleased to meet you. I'm coming in this year especially to this exact place every single month now to do what I call the introduction for the new month, and it's focused around what we're going to be doing in the My Incredible Orbit Academy community, where we do three really powerful group sessions focusing on a particular agenda or some type of concept. And the wonderful thing that we can do here in this moment is, regardless of whether you're an Academy member or not, you get insights into what we do in the community, but also mainly the reason why I'm doing this is because these concepts are really important. There's no coincidence in why we do all these concepts or why they come up as a priority. They're always really important. And what I find super surprising is that the concepts that comes up as a priority for us to tackle as a community, they always seem to be so relevant. And that's interesting because quite often the themes or agendas for these sessions are picked 12 months in advance. And, we don't know what life is going to look like or what everyone's going to be facing as individuals at that point in time. But it always seems to be just the most relevant and, positive things that we can look at addressing at that moment. So let's dive into it. This month, we're actually looking at the concept of, actually every month just has one word that, which is really different to what we've done in any other year in My Incredible Orbit. One word that kind of acts like an umbrella to capture all the concepts of what we're going to be addressing. So for February, our focus is on Aquarius. And the reason for that is because there is a lot of reference or ideas about this period of time that we are moving through, not only as individuals, but also as a collective consciousness, and that it relates to the age of Aquarius. And this cycle process that we see coming around again and again and again during the evolution of our humanity. And it's really interesting that when this age of Aquarius comes around, there are some really common things that seem to take place all the time. Different themes. They'll obviously be showing up in different ways because, different times in our history, we have different things going on, and there's different people alive and different people in power and all different technologies and things around us. So it is going to look different every single time. But usually what it signifies is great upheaval. It really is that in a nutshell. And then looking at the process for us progressing and evolving through that. So I'm going to touch on that a little bit. I plan to only be here for around about 10 minutes. I'm going to try and keep these really short and sweet moving forward. And the other focus underneath this umbrella of Aquarius is it's time for a revolution. And that's one of the things that actually comes about from this time period that we're in. It's actually one of many, but that really describes it quite beautifully because it's going to affect everybody in some way, shape or form, this process that we're moving through. Everyone is going to have their own journey with it. Everyone's going to have their own process that they are meant to do through that. And that can actually be a little bit of a tough one to reconcile, for sure, when you see people doing things that you might feel is not what they should be doing or places them in jeopardy of some kind. That's where it can get a little bit hard to reconcile. I totally understand that. So just bringing it back to self and what you can do, what you need to do, what's right for you, is going to be one of the best ways forward, especially throughout this year, for sure. So let's talk about the age of Aquarius. I have a ton of notes that I've collected over the past few months around me. So don't mind me if I'm just making sure that I capture everything before I leave you, because I want to condense it into a short space. And by all means, please, if you've got any questions about anything that's come up, if you want to add your own thoughts or opinions on it, by all means, start a conversation up and let's see where we go with this. Because I really do love not only your own perspective on this, but also, coming from the viewpoint of what your journey's been so far, where you're at right now, how you are experiencing everything that we're going through, and what you feel like is your focus for moving forward, okay? I have I suppose you would call it a mantra that I'm following for this year. I actually have one every year that I follow, and I really tune into it at the end of a year and feel into what does next year mean to me? What is going to be the most important thing for me to focus on and to stay aware of, no matter what's going on, okay? And this year, I have one word and one phrase. The word is vortex. Not one that I would normally have picked, but that's the one that came up for me and it felt really right. And the mantra was, I stay in my own lane. And that's really what I'm embodying this year, is really trying to not get caught up in the BS going on in anywhere. As I just stay in my own lane, not worrying about the choices that other people are making. I just stay in my own lane. I don't let myself, typical Gemini, get caught up in wanting to do this project and wanting to do that project. And I just got to stay in my own lane, the one that I'm doing right now. And I actually find that that's serving me really well. So if you have a word or a phrase that you're doing this year, I would love to hear about it. Okay, so let's dive into Aquarius. What we have observed, when I say we, I mean so many people have added to this conversation, so many, over our history, right up until I was just reading some really nice transcripts and interviews, even just yesterday, of people still adding their insights and their opinions to what does this age of Aquarius mean, and what does this time for revolution mean. And there's such similar things being mirrored throughout the conversation. So I'm going to basically take you through all of these. And what we need to keep in mind as I'm talking about these is, from my perspective, my role is as a facilitator for the My Incredible Orbit community. And I come in as a facilitator and bring with me these concepts and lay them out on the table in front of everybody. And then we do a group session with everybody in the community. We do it live, but we also then record it so that members can watch it whenever they want, as many times as they want. And they get it in their library for 12 months or more. And what we're doing in that moment when we're facilitating a live session is we're working with every single individual member's innate wisdom. And the innate wisdom from everybody forms this collective consciousness in the group. It's really quite remarkable. I love group work like this when you're dealing with integrated healthcare and you're dealing with concepts of expanded consciousness, because we definitely are stronger together when we do it in a group. And the capacity for healing rapidly and healing things that maybe you think is not even possible to heal, whether it be physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, whatever the heck it is, right? The potential to be able to address things and really move through and shift them, leave them behind, be able to form new ways of being is astronomical. So we take all these concepts that I'm going to tell you, and I go in and facilitate a session for the entire group. And whatever comes up in the session is going to be what the group's collective consciousness actually says is the most important thing that we need to do right now. Out of everything that we've brought to the table, this is the most important thing. And then on the second session, we do the same thing. The third session, we do exactly the same thing. And then it resonates for everybody in the community in their own ways. And they each go through their own transitioning process and healing process through that. It's really a very cool thing to do and lots of fun. So let me dive into the concepts. What this age of Aquarius is going to be, and we've really started to see and know that this is happening for us because of the upheaval and conflict that we've been noticing for the last year that is continuing. That's really common when we've shifted as a collective consciousness into an age of Aquarius, and it has that really strong kind of Aquarius consciousness with it. And what we often see is belief systems that had formed, really structured, rigid belief systems that had formed, whether it's in a person or whether it's in an entire community. It can even be in a country, in a government, in a culture. These rigid belief systems quite often can come up to be challenged very directly, very openly, and can look like it brings a lot of conflict, because what's trying to happen is that the old belief systems are literally trying to crumble and fragment and fall away because they are rigid, they're outdated, and it's impossible as an individual, not only as an individual, to be able to evolve, because that's what we're meant to do as human beings, evolve and keep learning and growing, and especially learning so that we're gaining wisdom from our experiences and we take it forward with us. But rigid belief systems prevent that from being able to happen. Instead, you'll find it stays rigid, and these belief systems won't accept or even look at other what would be called opposing beliefs. They're just beliefs, but they would be looked at as opposing beliefs. And the rigidity of those beliefs would just shut it down. Really quick would shut it down. And I don't know about you, but I've noticed a ton of that over the past 14 or 15 months, to the point where it's holding on for dear life in some of these places and some of these people. It is going through the process of crumbling, though, and it is going to take the collective consciousness to crumble them. And in order for the collective consciousness as a group to be able to challenge these rigid beliefs and crumble them, because they are beliefs that hurt people, really, really hurt people, and they prevent us from being able to tap into our humanity. They prevent us from being able to connect into the earth and into nature and into the animal kingdom and do what's right, not only for us, but for humanity, for the planet, right? It actually prevents all of that from happening. So in order for the collective consciousness to be able to challenge and help break down these rigid beliefs, it's actually up to us as individuals to be willing to go there and look at these beliefs. Just be willing to go there. Be willing to look at our own beliefs, be willing to challenge them. And one of the things that I wrote down here is question everything. That'd be something that I encourage everyone to do. Question everything. Don't just accept everything. That's not where we're at. That's not what we need to do right now. But question everything. And that quite often can be a super hard thing to do. If you have been conditioned, or if you come from a background or a family or schooling where it was the opposite that was conditioned into you, especially we're talking about subconsciously, because once that conditioning gets into the subconscious and that part of the mind just accepts it to be so, then that's what it will do every single day of your existence. Instead of questioning everything, it'll just accept it as information, it'll accept it as truth. There won't be that process of questioning there. So in order to grow, it's actually incredibly important that we question. So that's one of the things that we definitely have on the table that we need to do right now, okay? So we have the forming or the falling away of belief systems, so new healthy beliefs and attitudes and behaviours can actually start up. And it really does look like a tough place to be in right now for a lot of people, but it's so important that you keep your sights set on this overall big picture. Where are we? What's part of the processes, going on? What's part of the bigger picture, and what are we moving towards? And what do I need to do? What's the best thing that I can do for me and in my role as, a human being in this collective consciousness? What can I do? The focus in moving forward is going to be on connection instead of segregation. And that segregation and separation, holy cow, have we seen a lot of that? A lot of that. For lots of different reasons. I'm sure you can come up with quite a few inside, your own mind. I think of even in more recent years, there are certain social media platforms where the idea behind them is to connect, but they're actually being the opposite. They are separating people, segregating people, polarizing people, and not a nice energy at all. So we are not only moving into this future of where connection is vitally important for your happiness, your spiritual journey, your physical health, but you're going to desire it deeply. And I'm really finding, even in myself, absolutely, and it's really making me look at some very specific things right now and getting really clear and really firm on some things for myself in moving forward, what I need, who I need, and how I want that to come about. So that could definitely be something that you look at in moving forward. And I also find that this is something that, yes, clients are talking about it, students are talking about it, members of our community are talking about wanting to connect and wanting to find maybe new ways, or I'm going to say old ways of being able to connect, because I've got a pen pal friend, and this is something that we go back to things and we can renew things, not just bring in new ways of being able to connect and find your communities, find your tribes, find your person, find friends that are people that you resonate with right now, who you can really have deep, honest connections with, that are just full of integrity and honesty. I'm going to use the same word again because it's a word that just keeps coming up over and over and over again. The other thing will be on creating new foundations. That will be something that, if it hasn't already started to come up for you, it might be a little bit of a reassessment process that you're going through, where you've looked at foundations in the past and now they're coming up for you again, or they will be. And that can be anything. It can be your foundations in your connection to your intuition, your spiritual beliefs. It can be your foundations for your family. It can be your foundations for where you live or where you want to live. Foundations in a relationship will be a big one, but foundations in relationship with self will trump all those. Is if you get that right first, then the others will be so much easier to do. So creating new foundations. We're going to be looking at structures that are built on old traditions that are going to be looking to be dismantled so that new ones actually can be built that are honest and that they're healthy for the betterment of humanity. That is a huge focal feature right now. Huge. So I know some of what I'm going to be talking about is more kind of from the perception of what's going on out here, but with everything that I talk about, you can actually apply it to your own inner world and what's going on with you personally, for sure. Okay, so just see what comes up for you. All right, just going to check that there was no other comments there that I had to look at. Okay, so this very much is about, yes, the collective consciousness is actually going through a evolution process, but your own process of evolution is now on the table and being looked at. And it's almost this sense of or feeling that it starts to speed up. That's often what gets talked about during this age of Aquarius, is that evolution speeds up. Things can happen rapidly. And when it happens in a rapid way, it can seem that things change very quickly, that it can be quite chaotic, very, very disruptive. That's a common thing. But it's that same old concept of, quite often when things are falling apart, it's so that new things can come about. What looks like an absolute, crap storm is happening and it's horrendous and bad and whatever. It could look that way, but really it's leading to better things, new things, wonderful things, okay? And I want to be super clear here and make a statement and saying that I know there is dialogue happening throughout the world right now about some type of change, and that there's already been some introduced concepts or conversation around what this new is going to look like. This is where I want you to bring in the first part. Question everything. Don't accept what anyone is saying as, well, this is the direction we're going in, this is what it's going to look like, that's where you're going, that's what you should get ready for and put up with, right? So get ready for it. I want you to question that. The second component is do whatever you can to foster your relationship with your intuition, especially with your gut brain. Because in that process of questioning, that's the first vital component of healthy, independent, thinking and thought processes, where you're not being sucked into the norm or the conversation that's going on or the agenda that's being played out by whoever it is. That you have that process of, hang on, I'm just going to think about this a bit independently, a bit clearly. But then if you can take that information that's just been presented to you to your etheric brain, your gut brain, your gut brain is going to tell you in a few seconds flat whether that is your truth or not, or whether that is actually the truth or not, because there is a lot of misinformation out there right now. So they would be two pretty big things that you could place on yourself as being the focus for this year, and it will help you enormously, okay? And I think I mentioned it last time, there is a free small workshop. It came in the form of an interview. It's on the main page of my website, JackieMcIntyre.com. So go and catch that whenever you want, okay? So we were talking about often to make a fresh start. It's when everything falls and crumbles. And I have noticed that with a lot of clients over the years that experience burnout or breakdown, is that it can be a really horrendous experience to go through, but quite often precedes amazing, great change and, growth in their evolution. And if it's properly worked through and reconciled, then that experience that they've been through becomes almost like a superpower for them. And they, catalog the information within their body-mind complex as learning, and it turns over and becomes wisdom, so that when they move forward in the future, they use that experience really constructively, consciously and both unconsciously, so that not only does it not come back around again, that experience, because they've properly learnt from it and they've reconciled it, but then they become so much more stronger and clearer and connected to self from the experience. So it just propels them forward. The world opens up for them in ways that they didn't think possible. That's literally what we're doing now as a collective consciousness, kind of going through a massive breakdown, and everyone will experience the breakdown in their own individual ways, because everyone's journey is different, right? But it does mean that for a lot of people, some people will go through rapid transformation from it. Some people will go through steadier, more slower transformation. For some people, it will be very slow. And for some people, their process of learning from this experience and being able to integrate it will be really, really hard. Really hard. So that kind of brings me to another part. Is we talked before about, instead of segregation, we need to focus on connection. And one of the beautiful things about connection and tapping into the right communities is being able to do this together as a collective. It definitely will help us in being able to move forward, okay? Things like challenging the old, challenging what's considered to be normal, challenging what's considered to be right, challenging anybody that kind of says, well, that's the way we've always done it, so that's the way we're going to continue to do it. That needs to be challenged. There's no growth there. And everything needs to have growth. Everything needs to be in this process of evolving. So if there's anyone or any body of people that are kind of shut down and saying, no, there's nothing there for us to explore, no, that we're not going to change, that really needs to be challenged. And it's up to you then to be able to do that. This is partly what it's time for a revolution is all about, is what are you actually going to go through a revolution about? What is it going to look like for you? Are you going to start speaking up more? Are you going to start speaking more clearly from your heart? Are you going to call people on their BS? Are you going to call yourself on your BS? Are you going to challenge the old normal and kind of go, come on, we can do better than this? Are you going to really try and create change for yourself? Like, what do you think this is going to look like for you? Even the smallest of ideas and changes that you can implement will make a massive difference to your life, okay? So we definitely have a lot of these kinds of ideas on the table for us when we go into our series of sessions. Finding your own beliefs about things, and that's a big deal, because in my experience, people don't really have much of an idea that a lot of their own beliefs, things that they hold as being true, have actually come from somebody else. It's somebody else's belief. And it could even be a belief that they've told people that's not really truth. It's a phony belief. It's a belief that has got agenda behind it, or lies or manipulation or something behind it, but they deliver it as a belief, they deliver it as truth, and people take it on as being, they think it's genuine. And then we have situations where other people, what's true for them, what they believe, actually gets projected onto other people, or other people take it on as their own truth because they're not well connected into themselves to know that it's up to them to be able to form that. But also remember, a lot of these actually start back in childhood. So it's rare, it's so rare that I will work with a child that has that much clarity and presence and sense of self, where they go, I can actually make up my own mind on this. I have my own thoughts and feelings about this. That's normally a very, very kind of open and progressive family that I'm working with, if I'm come across that. So for majority of us, a lot of what we're facing now and the changes that we'll be going through is deep conditioning that's come from our family members, most who will have meant well, but they didn't realise that they actually would just keep passing on what's been passed on to them. So really we're at this point in time where we're challenging a lot of very old things that just don't need to be there anymore. We're going to be possibly challenging things where we're going to have to tap into unwavering courage to be able to say something, or to go against the majority, or to speak differently to what's been spoken in the room, or, on social media or wherever it is. So courage being a focal feature here. Decisions made from the perspective of this is for the greater good of humanity. That's where we're moving to. So rather than the single I, rather than, we've seen a lot of ego, a lot of decisions being made from ego, a lot of patriarchal, really masculine. I don't mean that in a derogatory way towards men at all, but everyone, men and women, have both masculine and feminine energies. And when those masculine energies in either person are dominant and they are really unhealthily balanced, then you'll get an overexpression of that masculine energy and that real patriarchal kind of dictator, manipulative, deceitful, aggressive, passive aggressive kind of behavior and words starts to come through. But it can be very manipulative, very deceitful, very much what's that saying, like a wolf in sheep's clothing, where they hide behind a nice smile and they've learnt well. And so we're seeing also then a lot of those narcissistic personalities in massive roles of influence and leadership and things like that. And because we're in this process of the part of the ego dying, or a large part of that ego, real unbalanced masculine patriarchal ego dying, it will fight to the end. It will fight to the end. It will keep telling its lies. It'll keep trying to gain the upper hand. It will keep trying to be aggressive. It'll keep trying to, rope members of the collective consciousness back in, because it will really do it so invested in self. It's the I. So invested in self rather than connection, the collective consciousness, humanity, the planet, the animal kingdom, all of us evolving together, bringing everyone up together, leaving no one behind. Instead of that being the focus, it does turn into the I, and you watch them fight to the last breath. They'll do that. So another thing that's going to become very important that people become better at is discerning the wolf that's in the sheep's clothing. because they are young, they are old, they are male, they are female, they are in all walks of life. They have money, they don't have money. They're everywhere, okay? Because they are part of that process of what we need to see. We need to see the delusion, or what has been presented as the illusion, to be able to move forward. So we have that one there. Would love to know your thoughts about that, by the way, if you have any thoughts coming up for you. Yeah, so they'll be fighting to the last breath. That's what the ego does. It fights to the last breath. It's so invested in its own crap. It can't give up its own story. It believes its own story. So it just keeps going, going, going. The other thing that I'm noticing, and this is part of, it's time for revolution, is that everyone's revolution is going to show up differently. Some people are really coming into this energy of wanting to make change right now. Some people are bringing this kind of strong energy that it could be perceived as being a little bit aggressive. It's because I think a lot of people are hitting frustration points, where you're frustrated with the way that things are. So that frustration or the anger can actually be really good. It can be a massive energy motivator. It can really propel people in the right direction. And everyone's just going to do it in their own unique ways. Other people, in their process of revolution, is they're going to bring more of a heart-based expression to the table and try to help facilitate change that way, which is what I'm really focused on. Progressing forward, this involves not only wanting to progress forward, but doing it from the perspective of forward thinking, open thinking. So like opening the mind to other concepts, other possibilities. We kind of touched on that a little bit before. Having more of a visionary mentality is also what this is all about and where we're going to. Please find your communities. If you don't feel like that you have found your community, please check into the My Incredible Orbit community. It's a wonderful community. It's supportive. It gives you a year-long support base, and there's information on my website about that. The doors are open at the moment. If it's not the right community for you, go find the right community for you. It's so important that you're going to be plugged into who you need to be plugged into. And if you're struggling with finding who that is or what it is, maybe do some art journaling, get clear about what my community would look like or what you feel like is important for you. And you're quite welcome to plug into our global community and maybe, toss some ideas out there or ask some questions and let the community come and help you find your own, okay? This is also then the time, and this could really push some buttons, right? So just see what comes up for you, to rebel. Now, if you were really scared in getting into trouble or be seen as a troublemaker or doing things wrong, if it scares you to go against the norm or do things that are considered to be naughty or wrong, then that could really push your buttons. But there's very positive, productive energy in the rebel. And it's never going to hurt to kind of tap into that inner rebel and actually know what it is, where it is, how you can use it. And also know when to pull it out when you need to pull it out, okay? To question everything. I've written that down so many times it's not funny, so I'm going to say it again for the last time. To go against the norm. That's part of it's time for a revolution. Be prepared to swim down a different stream all on your own for a while if you need to, or be prepared to ask people to come along with you if you also feel like it's important enough to do that. To make new rules. I'm so for this right now. I'm so eager to watch the old crumbling of things that are really pathologically toxic right now for all of us, And I'm really eager to make new rules and form new things in the world around us. Be open to other possibilities. That can be something that maybe you need to do that you don't even realize you'd shut down to, okay? Especially if you've had a really, really tough last year or so, you mightn't realize it, but you could have shut down to possibilities, okay? It's okay to disrupt the system. Be okay with disrupting the system. There is a lot of good that can come out of being able to do that. Question your own thoughts, your own attitudes. Really find out about intuition. That's not for a special few. Intuition is a system. Everyone's got it. Majority of people are using barely 1% of it. And if you could even just tap into 5% of it, you would become a force to be reckoned with. And I tell you what, it scares the crap out of people. When people are not only tapped into their own intuition, but they know kind of what that is. They're on that path of knowing what that is for them and what that means and how it shows up for them and how they use it. You become a force to be reckoned with. That's where your personal freedom is, right? Connected to self, really knowing your capabilities, where you can go, what you can do. Yep. Okay, I could talk for hours about that. And we're questioning everything that we've kind of done so far around our humanitarian actions, humanitarian values, and it's during this time that very often can change as well, because it comes from that questioning process, questioning the normal, what was, start opening up, having people have new ideas, new aha moments around, well, we could do this and maybe that would look good like that. People are willing and open to engage in conversation about that, toss things around. Before you know it, we have a brand new thought process about something coming to the table that benefits so many people, and it's, you know, so positive. And all it did was come about because people were willing to be able to go there. Just that willingness of, okay, I'll do this, okay? Really, at the end of the day, this is, by going through this whole process, it's going to bring you freedom. That's really what's going to happen, is freedom. There's not one person that I speak to or work with that doesn't desire freedom deeply, to know that they are free, that they've been able to create that, and that together we hold this respect for personal freedom and collective freedom. Yeah. Okay, so that is a lot that sits underneath that umbrella of Aquarius, right? And honestly, I've just skimmed the very basics of that. It's such a big topic that I'm genuinely really excited to see, when we do these 3 sessions, where the heck we go with this and what comes up as a priority to be addressed. So if you've had any realizations yourself from anything that we've discussed, if you want to ask any questions, if you want to throw anything out to the community that to get some ideas of, or to try and find a particular direction on, then do that. And if you'd like to connect with me, maybe work one-on-one, all the information's on my website. You want to connect in with the My Incredible Orbit community, again, it's on my website. You can sign up right now. The doors are still open for a short period of time. And the next time I'll be back in here to do a introduction for our next series of sessions, which we're going to be doing, which will be March, early March. And you'll get notification of that by being on our mailing list. So be sure to jump onto the website and hit the subscribe button, and I'll send an email out every now and then to let you know what I'm doing, okay? Beautiful. I'm so glad that you could all join me. Bugger, I'll have to do better in trying to keep my time down, but you know, there was a lot to say. There's a lot to discuss. I hope you guys have a really beautiful weekend. Enjoy yourself, enjoy each other, connect with the people who you love dearly, and we'll talk again very soon. Bye for now.